So this is the iPhone 14 Pro. I've had it for about 1 year. And in this episode, I'm going to go ahead and share with you everything I learned about it and give you my honest, real world user take on it, basically. And people say, Nick, bro, listen, man, does that mean all your other videos were not honest? I'm just going to assume because you said this one was honest, the other ones weren't honest. No. Why I put honest in the title is because I want you to know that this is going to be a little bit more subjective. It's going to be my take on it. I'm just being honest with you about how I feel about this phone and what I think about this phone 1 year later. I'm not really into the boring objective. Well, this one right here has a dynamic island, a 6.1 inch. I mean, I used to be like that when I first started making videos. But as I've grown into the channel, now I like to share more of a user experience. And as the specs have gotten kind of boring over the years, I kind of just want to share, how what the actual experience is like. Because I think it more matters now about the experience than just the specification, because most phones are good. Let's talk about this phone's price point. So the iPhone 14 Pro, $999. There is rumors that this phone is going to increase in the price tag this year. And honestly, I feel like this phone, it feels like $1,000 phone, but it doesn't really feel like it's 100% worth it in the sense of if you paid a full $1,000. And the reason I say that is because, the phone is kind of similar to the iPhone 13 Pro Max or the 13 Pro and the iPhone 12 Pro. Even it hasn't changed too much. And so I think if you did a trade-in value, got this cheaper on a carrier deal or something, it's a much better deal in that sense. For the full retail, unless you're coming from something really old, it doesn't feel like really that worth it unless you've never had a premium iPhone experience. But in terms of the build of materials, we do have stainless steel on the edge. Makes this phone quite heavy. This phone actually, even though it's smaller, this phone is actually heavier than that of the iPhone 14 Plus. Now, I also have to say, I don't really like how far those camera lenses have stuck out the body. Maybe Apple will make those a little more flush in the future. But they do definitely look, unique to the iPhone experience. And I do like how premium they look in the sense that they got those nice camera rings around them and stuff like that. The glass is shiny, it matches up with the edges. You know what I'm saying? Like, it looks baller, but at the same time, it's definitely kind of, I would say, a little bit sticking up the edge so much that if you drop this phone, you could definitely hit it on the right angle and crack those lenses. That actually happened to my wife. Now, if you look at the bottom here, you'll see we do have the lightning port, and this has not been a major issue for me because I have lightning cables around the household, but at the same time, I would like to see USB-C on the next version. No eSIM or no SIM card on here, just total eSIM. I talked about this in my 14 Pro Max, but this has been a headache in terms of switching. Especially if you're coming from a phone that has a SIM card and then you have to set this up and you like to switch between your other phones sometimes. If you were that type of person, this will be annoying. If you're not, it'll just be one headache and then you'll be done with it and you'll be on your way. You'll have the carrier do, the help you out with the eSIM changing and stuff like that. That's actually the 5G antenna right there. Power button right there in that location was pretty good. And overall, I really enjoyed the 13 Pro. So this one wasn't that much different. So I kind of enjoyed this one too. The deep purple is kind of a unique color option, but not my favorite. I just picked this one up because it was the latest color last year. I'm looking for more of a red. I want to see like a product red iPhone. But overall, on the whole, the body of this phone just feels like a premium iPhone that we've been knowing and loving and enjoying for years, but a little bit sharp in the corners, not the most ergonomic feel right here, and definitely has a nice weight to it. Makes it feel a little bit chunky, if you will. The S23 to me is a lot more comfortable of a phone to hold than the iPhone 14 Pro, but the 14 Pro feels substantial. It feels like you paid a good buck for it. So kicking it off to the display here, it is a Super Retina XDR OLED panel, and what you'll really notice here is that it has pretty sharp text, very bright though. That is like the key thing I notice every time I use a 14 Pro versus a 14 Plus and other phones. It's extraordinarily bright. This phone, outdoors is one of the easiest I've ever seen on any smartphone in the world to see in direct sunlight. So if you find yourself in those situations where you're peekaboo to see the screen, you'll really love the iPhone 14 Pro's screen. Now, the dynamic island is a huge cutout up there, and for me, it definitely has some uses with multiple applications, but it hasn't been the like a breakout feature that really makes me like miss it when I'm not on it. So what I'm saying is that if I use a different phone, I don't really miss Dynamic Island. It's cool to have, but I think it's kind of a stopgap between the time when Apple can get this to a full screen or something just kind of more groundbreaking. I think it's going to be like just like a few years with this, and then we're going to see something totally different, maybe a full screen iPhone. That's going to be amazing. But for now, it's kind of useful. We'll see how this goes. Developers have been hopping on board with a few applications, but not all of them. Now, the bezels are actually quite thin, although there are rumors that Apple's going to push these bezels even thinner on the next version. But overall, I do like the accuracy of the colors. I think they're a good balance between saturated and natural. But my issue is that there's no real way to tweak them besides an accessibility with the color filters and stuff like that. But I mean, you can't really tweak it like in terms of the RGB values and stuff like that. So if you really want to get in there and get it like super vivid or super natural, you don't really have that option. You kind of just got to live with what it is, and it's fine. I don't think a lot of people are going to care, but if you're into customizing your display colors and stuff like that, you won't really love this phone. Size-wise, though, I think because of the weight, it's not the most comfortable phone, honestly. And because the corners, the back is flat, and then these corners are a little bit sharper than something like an iPhone 11 Pro or 11 Pro Max back in the day, you can kind of feel this phone digging into your palms a little. It's definitely more comfortable than the 14 Pro Max. But, I like a case on this phone because it feels a little bit more comfortable with a case. I just rock a regular silicone TPU, and it just gives a little more of a smoother feel. But on its own, the phone on its own, it's not super heavy, but it feels kind of sharp here in those corners. That's my only take on it. It's not as sharp as like a squared phone, but I just think this phone could get a little more comfortable to hold. But yeah, watching a video, making a video, it's a great display. It's OLED. Deep blacks. My only issue is this phone actually will dim quite a bit more than I find on some other products. So if you don't like dimming, you definitely need to keep this phone in good temperatures, because in extreme temperatures, this phone will really dim to protect its battery and stuff like that. So that's my only con with it. So moving on to software, I got to tell you, 1 year later, honestly, it's iOS. I don't feel like anything has changed from this year to the previous year to the previous year. We get all these little features, and a million different channels are making iOS videos, which is fine. We want to see what's new. But at the same time, in reality, you go to the settings, it's the same old looking stuff. You go to the home screen, the grid of icons, same old. Widgets have been around for a little while with Apple, like 3 years already. So that's nothing new anymore. And we have an app library. Now, I do think this is actually a beneficial thing in the software, that it's kind of stays the same, because, that's a sign of a really great product, that you don't really have to change too much because it just works. But I think, how long can we keep saying that? I mean, I probably sound like a broken record player to you by at this point. But how long can we keep saying it just works until we just want something different? I think humans are just really enticed by new things. We just want something different most of the time. And with this, it's not really that. Now, I'm saying from the standpoint of how it comes out of the box. Of course, there is a lot of ways with the new widgets that you can customize iPhone. And if you really want to get serious, there are applications that'll let you theme stuff out and really take it to the next level in the customization. But it's a little bit more tricky to set that up on iPhone versus like an Android phone. And at the same time, iOS just works. Now, here's the pros. Really well updated. Because they're not overloading it with features, Apple has just made this phone smooth and smoother. Now, 16 at first was kind of buggy. That was kind of annoying. But at the same time, you can't deny how smooth iOS is, how smooth the animations are, how polished it looks, how everything just kind of is very in sync. Like nothing looks like out of place. It just looks like it was all meant to work together with all the Apple products, and the software it just all matches up well. And so it's one of the most polished, well put together, frequently updated, smooth and reliable operating systems on the planet today. And for that reason, you can still say that this is really, something that is probably worth it, because you're going to have it for 5 years and still be getting updates. So 1 year later in performance, I could tell you, if I'm being totally honest with you, the A16 hasn't done anything for me that the A15 couldn't do. But it does do one thing. If you want to keep your phone a super long time, you're probably going to get 1 year more of update, because Apple usually gives about a year more on a phone with a faster chip. So for that reason alone, if you want to wait till the 15 comes out and get this on a cheaper price point, it's going to last you a little bit longer. But the performance itself has won out in most speed tests and the benchmarks. Animation speeds are not as fast as current S23 models, but at the same time, the phone is still at its core, at the technical spec level. Like if we get down to the cores, we get down to the Geekbench, we get down to the specs, the iPhone is still the more powerful phone that doesn't really have an operating system that takes full advantage of that. But at the same time, what can you expect? You're going to have great performance every single day. So 1 year later with this camera, I've been saying this since 11 Pro, these phones can replace, most point and shooters. But now this camera is like, this is like having an actual camera. Not only does it have the raw modes up here, it's 48 megapixel. It has all these little things you can change the aspect ratio. You can change between different modes of contrast and stuff like that. You have an action mode now in video, which makes this thing even better. So you can do that. There's just so much to do on this phone. Portrait mode, panoramics, it just goes on and on. Cinematic, if you really want to get into the blur in the background, slow motion, time lapse. And then Apple has some of the better camera applications on the market today, where a lot of third parties will just add a lot of ways to, really dive deep into the camera app. And I just love it. It feels like I have a little Sony camera in my hand, and Sony does make the sensors for the iPhone, but I'm saying like great Sony quality sensors on this, iPhone with great software, and it just works. You don't got to know how to do anything to be shooting like a pro on the iPhone Pro, which not only combines the name Pro, but with a consumer product, and you have basically something in most people's hands that can really just create amazing results. And here's some example of those results. So let me put it into the landscape mode here. Hold on. Got to put this into the landscape, and you'll see right here, take a look at this quality. You would think I took this thing on a professional camera. It's ridiculous. It's laughably good for a smartphone. This was a video right here, but this looks like a movie. You can make movies on your iPhone, and yeah, you could do this on Android phones too. But the iPhone is one of the best for people who don't need to know how to do anything with their phone. And it just nails it with the processing of the photos and videos and stuff. Apple is really good here, but I think Google's a little better with the photos. But the video quality, man, if you're a video taker, this is where it's at. Talking about the battery life, never really stood out as a top performer. The smaller iPhone is never the top performer, but this one, particularly with the higher brightness, was actually worse than the iPhone 13 Pro, but still with medium to heavy use can make it a day. Heavy user, like a super heavy user, absolutely not. The battery life on this phone for me was about 5 hours screen time, a full day of use for me, but it was a lot lower than that of the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So if you wanted more battery, you had to go with that phone. Audio quality was fine on here, and reception strength with phone call quality and things of that sort was very, very good as well. It has Qualcomm modems and didn't really have any drop calls, anything like that. And the Wi-Fi strength was pretty good. Bluetooth connectivity was strong. This overall just feels like a well put together, refined product that doesn't really push the envelope. It doesn't really feel like it does a lot besides having an amazing camera that sticks off the back of the phone. It just feels like a premium iPhone with a nice purple color option, deep purple have you. And it just doesn't stand out to me as like super exciting. It's just really good. You're just like, I like that iPhone. I want that iPhone. I'll get that 14 Pro. It's one of the best, but it's not like overly exciting, like it's a brand new innovation or something like that. It's just Apple doing what Apple does, making a great smartphone with great software support, great performance, and great cameras. And a year later, I would say that probably would wait till the 15 comes out to see what happens there. And then if you want to pick up a 14 Pro, get it at a cheaper price. It's going to be a good value. So thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts on the 14 Pro, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.